Roland has made some of the most iconic instruments and synthesizers and drum machines of all time. The Junos, Jupiters, TR-808, TR-909 are just a few examples that can be heard on countless records. I've used Roland synths and drum machines a lot in my productions, but they're obviously always in the mix with a lot of other instruments and sounds. So today, I thought it would be fun to challenge myself to make a song using only Roland instruments. I'll be using Roland Cloud, so I will have access to software versions of all the classics, plus some really interesting looking modern software instruments like Galaxias. Thank you to my friends at Roland for giving me access to Roland Cloud and also for supporting the channel by sponsoring today's video. So take a quick listen to what I cooked up, and then we'll break down the production. I'll show you all the sounds and instruments that I used to create what you're about to hear. Check it out. Enjoyed the music. You can let me know in the comments below what you think. I had a lot of fun with this one. It definitely forced me to use some instruments that I wouldn't normally reach for. And this little challenge also kept me from going to the same instruments and sounds and samples that I use on a pretty regular basis. So that's always a good thing. So let's hop into Logic, check out some of these sounds and instruments and production. Let's start by checking out the keys. Several layers here. For the main chords, I was kind of deciding between two different Juno patches. Here's our first patch. Here's the second one. So as I'm blending these two patches together, I remembered, oh, wait a minute, I can just do this all inside of Galaxias, which is Roland's latest super instrument, and do all of this inside one plugin, which is really cool. So as you open Galaxias, yes, it's a super instrument, but what I was pleasantly surprised to see is it's almost like a hub browser for all of your Roland sounds, which is really cool. So as you're programming your sounds, up at the top here, you can browse by type. On the right here, you can browse by all of your instruments. So if we go to our third layer, come over here to sounds, you can see I've just got all of my presets here. If I wanted to add, let's say like a choir sound, it'll load up all of the different choir presets that I have from all of my instruments. If I want to just browse by one instrument, come up here, go to the D50, and now it'll show me only presets for that particular instrument. Once you have your different layers selected, you can come over here to the instrument window. You can bop back and forth between your layers, and then you can just tweak and use this instrument like you would any of the normal plugins. So if I want to change my preset or browse through stuff, I have my Juno window that I can browse through and find a new sound if that's what I'm looking for. This layer setting section down here is handy if you want to do just like some quick mixing. On my first layer here, you can see I pulled back the volume quite a bit and also added a filter. So that's helpful for like quickly mixing your layers, but you also have a full-blown mix window. So here you just have some expanded control of your layers. You have control over your buses. So if I want to program some effect sends, I can do that. And with this patch, I just wanted to add some chorus to the first layer to kind of give it a little bit more space. And then I can have my second layer kind of sit right in the middle. Let's take a listen. You also have have a sequencer window, so you can program your sequences right inside Galaxias. You can also program things like keyboard splits. You also have 16 knobs that you can use to control different macros and parameters and effects. You can map pretty much anything to any knob and then map multiple macros to each knob. So there's really endless customization and combinations, and you can get really creative with this feature. So that's our main chords with Galaxias. I've got a little bit of micro shift on there for some added dimension. And then I've got RC20, which is like the old standby, just to add like a bunch of effects really quickly. So once I had the main chords, I wanted a lower octave sound, but I wanted a different sort of texture. So I went into the Jupiter 8. I found this kind of cool bass patch. Just played some fifths here. And then with the main chords, just added so much more weight to the sound. I really liked it. And then I just duplicated the same RC20 from the previous track just to kind of glue everything together. The next key sound that comes in is this little bells patch that I found in the Juno 106. A simple part that's just living in the background of the track, but something that's going to add some melody and a little bit of interest for the listener. A couple of drones, or maybe you'd call these pedal tones, that are just kind of living in the background of the track. One is just a strings patch on the Juno 60. Got a lot of processing on this one. The first is this Rabbit Tape plugin that I really, really love. It's probably one of my favorite tape saturation plugins right now. The next thing I threw on there was another Safari Pedals plugin called Gorilla Drive, another one that I really like. And this was really just more to like saturate the signal a little more without, with. I also took the tone knob back a little bit just to kind of darken the sound a little bit, but another really simple and easy to use plugin. I really like Safari Pedals for that. I've got a couple of reverbs going. I got one directly on the track, which is just like a dark hall reverb, and you can see I've pulled this dry signal back quite a bit just to kind of give me more of that reverb sound. And then I've got another hall from Valhalla Vintage Verb on there as well. And the last plugin we've got, this is Spread. This is one of my favorite widener plugins. Without, with. You can go a little wider if you want. You can pan these, get really funky. You can turn different bands off, so if you only want to affect the mid-range, you can do that. Really cool plugin. And the next drone sound we have is in this kind of like main chorus section, I guess. Different patch on the Juno, but for the most part, the same effects processing as the strings. I'm not using Gorilla Drive on this one, and I am using just like a shaper box to give this kind of like a sidechain effect. Just real quiet in the background of the track. Now for the lead sound, had to go with another Juno. Juno is probably my favorite synth of all time, so this was bound to be a Juno heavy track. This Rip Lead preset, I love. I've been using it so much lately. Take a listen. Just like the classic synthesizer lead tone that you want. Rabbit Tape and Gorilla Drive on this one again. You can hear you can get really funky with that wow knob. And then just some reverb on this one, pretty straightforward lead sound. So this section of the song is probably my favorite. Kind of the main feature is this part right here. Just a Roland D50 patch that I found that I liked. I was just kind of like digging through some different patches, and this one sounded great on this part. And just like nothing on it. Some more Rabbit Tape. You can tell I'm obsessed with this plugin right now. And you'll notice, like almost every time I use this plugin, I like to push into the plugin with the input trim and then pull back on the output to kind of balance out the signal. Great way to add just like a little bit more saturation and warm up the tone in like a really pleasing way. More RC20 and then just some delay courtesy of Echo Boy. Add some nice space and dimension. In this next section, this Bells 2 part here is our same patch from earlier, from this Juno patch. I just added Waves Doubler to this one just to kind of spread the sound out a little bit. And then the track. And then last but not least for our keys is just a Jupiter 8 patch. Let's see, I think this is a bass patch. Just kind of like your classic arpeggiator. Microshift, RC20, and spread all on this one. I'm also automating the one knob filter from Waves just to give the sound that kind of opening and closing of the filter. So let's move on to bass. For the majority of the song, I've got a Galaxias patch that I programmed using a Juno. Let's see. Juno Solid Bass is the Juno preset. And then for the Jupiter sound, I'm using the same Thrillin' sound that I used earlier in the track for my low chords. Let's just take a listen to the bass. You can hear the Jupiter is really pulled back in the mix, and it's really just kind of there to add just a little bit of a texture, higher octave. I've also got some chorus on this just to spread it out a little bit, kind of adding some width to the bass part. Now, another cool thing about Galaxias is once you have your sound programmed the way that you want it, you can come up here and you can say Save As, and you can save these as a scene. In here, you can see my bass sound and my chord sound that I programmed, and you can also add these scenes to a set list. So say you wanted to program an entire show, you could program different scenes, and then take those scenes, say Add to Set List, come over to your set list, and you've got all of your sounds ready to go. And then all I'm adding to this Galaxias bass part is a little bit of saturation from Black Box. And then this other bass part is just another Juno patch, this saw bass patch, and I just wanted to do that like synth bass repeated eighth note thing. Now, before we get to the drums, there's just a couple of sound effects that I want to show you. I was just browsing through sound effect sounds in Galaxias. I found this Rain Forest sound in the JV 1080. Just absolutely no reason for this to be in the song, or for the song to start with this sound for that matter, but it just sounded really interesting to me. Just thought I would have a little fun and throw it in there. I got about 90% of the way through the production on this one, and there was just some like transition moments missing. So I went into Galaxias, and I pulled together a couple of layers to make this riser effect. So kind of the main thing you're hearing is this FX Wind patch from the Juno, and then there's also this feedback Vox. That's from the JV 1080. Just cool, and together I thought they sounded really cool. So I bounced that sound in place. I added a little Gorilla Drive. I added some Valhalla Supermassive just to kind of add a ton of space and dimension to this. And here's what I got. I also raised this by 3 semitones just because it sounded a little bit better in the mix. And last but not least, we have our drums. Pretty much all of these sounds were programmed in the TR-808 or the 727. So I kind of went section by section. I would program a pattern, and then this bus 31 here, I would send the audio from this MIDI track to a print track, press record, print the audio. That way I could kind of go section by section, program some different drum beats so it's not just the same thing looped over and over again. I use the 808 for kick and snare, and then hi-hats come in a little bit later in the song right here. And then I programmed this one tom fill. Printed that, cut it up a bunch of different ways, and that was kind of my drum fill throughout the course of the song. I got a few effects on here that are helping me get a little bit more of an interesting effect out of the drum fills. Pretty simple flanger. This Owl Control plugin from Safari is just a compressor. And then this Dirty Dog plugin from Safari Pedals is really sick. It's overdrive and reverb in the same plugin. You can just get some really cool sounds out of this. This clap sound is courtesy of the SH101. To be honest with you, I was just looking for a clap sound that I could use in here. So I opened up Galaxias, just browsed through the different clap presets that were available and decided on this one. Now our shakers and congas come courtesy of the TR727. Obviously a great drum machine to use for percussion, and you can get a lot of different variation with the alt and weak step program options. Let me show you. If you've never used one of these more traditional drum machine sequencers, I definitely recommend playing around with one and seeing what you create. I've got knock on my drum bus just for a little bit of soft clipping, some saturation, a little bit of punch, a little bit of sub. And then a little bit of reverb, just a kiss. Just kind of glue everything together. Make it feel like it's in a room. And then Pro L2 for some limiting. Of course, outside of the restrictions of this challenge, I'm going to add guitars and vocals to this one, but as a finished sounding track and a finished arrangement, this one is feeling really good to me. The Roland plugins were as awesome as I expected to be. Galaxias was a pleasant surprise. It just really sped up my workflow. The browser helped me find sounds really quickly, and getting to layer together different, iconic synthesizers was just really fun to do. I'll be sure to leave some info in the video description on Roland Cloud. Roland have a number of different ways that you can get access to their plugins, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Thanks again to my friends at Roland for helping me make this video today. I'm Patrick. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.